6:45, this is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Danushka Madavala, read by Soundithavam. The President says the commencement of the country's development-driven economic program is set for the 1st of January. The Minister of Education says new educational reforms to be introduced in 2024. New migrant worker loan scheme launched. The 13th round of the ECTA negotiations to be held in India in January. The Agriculture and Plantation Industries Ministry says 550 million rupees already paid for crop damage in the Yala season. In foreign news, Putin visits the UAE, Saudi Arabia, set to host Iranian president in Moscow. And in sports, the David Pearce Group extends its sponsorship for the Mercantile E-Division cricket tournament for the 21st consecutive year. President Ranil Wickremesinghe, addressing the centenary celebration of the Government Valuation Department, declared the initiation of a groundbreaking economic program yesterday. Set to kick off on January 1st, this transformative initiative is designed to modernize various sectors and propel the nation towards progress. The President underscored the imperative nature of adopting new economic reforms, emphasizing that the nation cannot afford to persist with outdated systems. He highlighted that hardships endured over the past years should not be passed down to the next generation, asserting that only viable course of action is to be embraced the proposed economic changes, urging collective participation. Reflecting on the recent economic challenges, President Wickremesinghe acknowledged the concerted efforts that rescued the country from financial distress over the past 18 months and commended the heads of public institutions and the workforce for their dedication. He cautioned against complacency, warning that without prudent management of the current economic stability, the nation might face another crisis within the next decade. The President advocated for a shift towards a digital economy, citing the necessity of employing modern economic methodologies. President Wickremesinghe additionally emphasized that global financial entities have acknowledged Sri Lanka's remarkable and swift recovery from economic challenges, particularly in comparison to countries facing bankruptcy amidst the global economic recession. The Minister of Education, Susil Premajayant, announced that the commencement of the pilot program for the implementation of the upcoming educational reforms across all grades is scheduled for the upcoming year. Efforts will be made to digitize the entire education system, receiving support from both local and foreign sponsors. During a press conference at the Presidential Media Centre yesterday, Minister Premajayant also outlined the future plans to conduct the GCE O-level examination in grade 10 and the GCE A-level examination in grade 12. Expressing his views further, the minister said, in the 2024 budget, the Ministry of Education has been allocated 237 billion rupees, while an additional 280 billion rupees has been designated for education at provincial level. This totals to approximately 517 billion rupees dedicated to education in this year's budget. Special programs have been devised for the educational advancement of children with special needs. Looking ahead, an inclusive education system will be introduced, aiming to integrate them into classrooms alongside their peers. Recognizing the significance of STEAM education in building human resources, as observed in many developed nations, efforts are being directed towards giving formal access to students in the field of science, technology, engineering, arts and mathematics. The goal is to bring about positive changes in the country's school system by prioritizing these areas. The new Manasami migrant worker loan scheme was launched on Monday, together by the Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment and the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. The relevant loan proposal agreements were exchanged between the officials of the SLBC and the CBSL under the patronage of the Minister of Labour and Foreign Employment, Manusha Nanayakara. According to the SLBC, the loan can be obtained for starting or expanding a business, buying, constructing or expanding a house, buying land or a vehicle, higher education of children or any other productive purposes. The SLBC has allocated a sum of 5 billion rupees to implement this loan scheme, while the maximum limit of the loan a migrant worker can obtain is 2 million rupees, and the maximum interest rate that can be charged from the borrower is 8%, with a maximum period of 36 months given to repay the money. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The 13th round of the Economic and Technology Cooperation Agreement negotiations between Sri Lanka and India are scheduled to be held from 8th to the 10th of January. The government says accordingly the next round of negotiations is to take place in India. Meanwhile, it has been decided to conclude the technical level discussions by the ECTA by March 2024. At its meeting on Tuesday, the Cabinet of Ministers took into consideration the submission made by President Ranil Wickremesinghe regarding the 12th round of ECTA negotiations between Sri Lanka and India, which took place from October 30th to November 1st this year in Colombo. The Agriculture and Plantation Industries Ministry has now started awarding compensation for crop damage caused by the severe drought in the 2023 Yalla season. Accordingly, the Agriculture and Agrarian Insurance Board states that the amount spent for crop damage compensation is 550 million rupees. The Agriculture and Agrarian Insurance Board says that all the money required for crop damage compensation in the Vallava zone and the Hamadara district have been allocated, and by the end of this month the compensation will be awarded to all the farmers in the country who faced crop damage. An opportunity to award compensation to the farmers of the Vallava region took place on Monday in Angudukala Palasa. 200 farmers of the Vallava zone were awarded compensation. According to the estimates made regarding crop damage in the Yalla season, about 65,000 acres were damaged due to the drought, and 11,000 acres were damaged due to floods caused by the rains that followed. That concludes local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Vedamahatma.
South Asia's first revolving restaurant and banquet hall will open the Blue Orbit Restaurant and Banquet Hall at the Lotus Tower on Sunday. This will be unveiled at a joint venture between the Colombo Lotus Tower Management, who will have 80% stake, and the Citrus Leisure PLC. The Blue Orbit will be South Asia's tallest restaurant and Sri Lanka's first revolving restaurant. Investment Promotion State Minister Dilum Amanagama said the Blue Orbit will add more value to Sri Lanka as a tourist destination. He said the Lotus Tower was branded as a white elephant, and this government converted it into a profitable venture. With a seating capacity for 225 guests at any given time, the Blue Orbit restaurant will feature an extensive international buffet for lunch and dinner, operating from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. That was the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Vedamahatma.
We move on to watch light. Amidst the onset of the rainy season, there has been a notable surge in dengue cases. The senior advisor to the President on National Security and the Chief of the Presidential Staff, Sagala Ratnayaka, has urged relevant departments to promptly implement measures to address this escalating situation. A meeting was convened at the Presidential Secretariat, spearheaded by the Health State Minister Dr. Sita Aramapola and Chief of the Presidential Staff, Sagala Ratnayaka. During the discussion, Sagala Ratnayaka issued directives to the National Dengue Control Unit. Concerns were raised about the rising number of dengue cases in Colombo, Gampaha, Kandy and the Jaffna districts. We now move on to a bulletin of world news making headlines this morning. Putin visits the UAE and Saudi Arabia, set to host Iranian president in Moscow. Senate Republicans block Ukraine and Israel aid bill. And Taylor Swift named Time magazine's Person of the Year. Russian President Vladimir Putin has visited the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia amid Russia's deepening confrontation with the United States and other nations over Ukraine. On his tour of the Middle East, he met UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan in Abu Dhabi yesterday. Putin then visited Saudi Arabia and held talks with the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Riyadh. The Russian president is believed to have discussed stabilizing crude oil prices and energy cooperation in these meetings. Putin is scheduled to host Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi in Moscow today. He aims to strengthen ties with the leaders of the three Middle Eastern countries as part of Russia's counter-moves against the US and some other nations. Senate Republicans have blocked a move to pass an aid bill for Ukraine after failing to secure border compromises they sought in exchange. The $110 billion package included $61 billion for Ukraine, as well as funds for Israel and aid for Gaza. Republicans are insisting that any aid to Ukraine be tied to sweeping U.S. immigrations and asylum reforms. The White House has warned that U.S. funds for Ukraine could soon run out. Senators voted 51 to 49 against advancing the bill, with 60 votes needed. The vote throws uncertainty into the future of aid for Ukraine and sends lawmakers back to the negotiating table, with just days to go until Congress has scheduled the winter break. Taylor Swift has capped off a stellar 2023 by being named Time magazine's Person of the Year. The star, whose Eras tour broke box office records and provoked an inquiry into Ticketmaster's sales practices, follows the likes of Barack Obama, Greta Thunberg, and Volodymyr Zelensky. She told the magazine that she is the proudest and happiest she's ever felt. The award goes to an event or person deemed to have had the most influence on global events over the past year. The singer also admitted to the magazine that the toll of her 180-minute Eras concerts often left her feeling physically exhausted. Back to the headlines of the world news. Putin visits the UAE. Saudi Arabia set to host Iranian president in Moscow. Senate Republicans block Ukraine and Israel aid bill. And Taylor Swift named Time magazine's Person of the Year. On to development news. The conducting of examinations in Consultation Skills Test under Specified Skilled Worker Program of Japan was launched on the 1st of December in Sri Lanka, marking a significant step in opening up new employment opportunities for Sri Lankans in the Japanese job market. Specified Skilled Worker is the status of residents for foreign nationals to engage in jobs that require specified skills in identified industry fields to bridge the shortage of workers in the Japanese labour market. In a collaborative effort, the Sri Lankan Embassy, the Ministry of Labour and Foreign Employment, and the Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment have successfully worked together with the Japanese stakeholders to open new avenues for Sri Lankans seeking employment in Japan. That's development news, and let's take a look at sports news. The David Pearce Group extends its sponsorship for the Mercantile E-Division Cricket Tournament for the 21st consecutive year. The second longest Mercantile Cricket Association sponsorship reaffirms the David Pearce Group's commitment to sports in the country. The official handing over of the sponsorship took place yesterday at the Mercantile Cricket Association with the participation of the president of the MCA, Mahesh Dialvis. That's sports news. Business news up next.
Go ekakthiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න as වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IAM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
US-based IT giants Meta and IBM have established a new group aimed at speeding up open-source development of generative AI technology. Meta, formerly called Facebook, and IBM on Tuesday announced the launch of AI Alliance, together with more than 50 businesses and research institutions. The alliance will generate AI programs free or widely accessible so that its members can share technology and know-how, thereby promoting development of related technology. The participants from Japan include Sony Group, the University of Tokyo, and a SoftBank subsidiary that develops generative AI. The US startup OpenAI, which developed ChatGPT, and its partner Microsoft have not joined the AI Alliance. That's business news. Economic news up next.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekakthiyana youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න as වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru Mithru account, NSB IAM, a plan for your dream.
And now in economic news.
A surge in Polish visitors to Sri Lanka this winter-spring season is expected due to the increase in direct Polish charter flights from Warsaw and other Polish cities to Colombo and the Mattala airports. These include LOT Charters, SkyUp Airlines and Enter Air, in addition to the regular Turkish Airlines flights carrying Polish tourists to Sri Lanka from Warsaw via Istanbul. A fresh impetus to activating further interest in destination Sri Lanka was given by the recent official unveiling of LOT Polish Airlines 2024 to 2028 strategy, which identified Sri Lanka among the profitable Asian destinations. That's economic news, and on to the weather report. Showers or thundershowers will occur at several places over most provinces of the island after 1 p.m. Heavy showers, about 100 millimeters, are likely at some places in the central, Sabaragamuwa and north-central provinces. Several spells of showers can be expected in the coastal areas of the western province and in the Galle and Matara districts during the morning too. Misty conditions can be expected in the Sabaragamuwa, central and Uva provinces during the morning. To conclude this bulletin of news, a recap of the headlines. The President says the commencement of the country's development-driven economic program is set for the 1st of January. New educational reforms to be introduced in 2024, Minister of Education Susil Premajand says. New migrant worker loan scheme introduced. The 13th round of the ETCA negotiations to be held in India in January. The Agriculture and Plantation Industries Ministry says 550 million rupees already paid for crop damage in the Yalla season. Putin visits the UAE, Saudi Arabia set to host Iranian president in Moscow. The David Pearce Group extends its sponsorship for the Mercantile E-Division Cricket Tournament for the 21st consecutive year. With that, we conclude this morning's news broadcast, and now it's back to your hostess, Geethanjali, to keep you well entertained this Thursday morning.